Hey everybody, so today I want to talk about my favorite childhood movies. Movies I used to watch all the time as a kid. Now, one of these on the list, funny enough, is not exactly a kid friendly film, but it's one I used to watch over and over and over, so I had to put it on this list. But funny enough, as a kid, I didn't really watch too many animated movies. I've never been a big fan of animated movies. I don't know why. As a kid, I used to watch a lot of science fiction, a lot of fantasy, a lot of martial arts and action movies. I was really huge into Jean Claude Van Damme. So that's all I was watching as a kid is a lot of Van Damme movies, um, a lot of Steven Seagal movies, Jet Li, Jackie Chan. I was really into the Lord of the Rings, and as a kid, I watched The Godfather a lot. Maybe not the most kid friendly film ever, but to me, like it just floored me. I was in awe the very first time I ever saw The Godfather. So to this day, The Godfather is my favorite film ever made. I think it's the greatest film ever made, period. But let's talk about some movies that are a bit more kid friendly that I used to watch all the time, and they were my favorite. To this day, I love these movies so much. So let's get into it. So in no particular order, the first one on the list is Batman Forever. This came out in 1995 and is directed by Joel Schumacher. It was actually the start of I guess, the more cartoony and campy, more neon glow version of Batman, which honestly I thought was really cool. There's a scene in Batman Forever where Robin steals the Batmobile and runs into this gang that is covered in like neon glowing fluorescent paint, and then they fight like in this their hideout is like, and like where they hang out is like just filled with that fluorescent paint, and I thought that was really cool. I don't know why that like, I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. um but yeah, Batman Forever came out in 1995. I was very small when that came out, but I remember it very fondly. I especially loved it because I've always been a huge fan of Jim Carrey. So when I saw Jim Carrey as the Riddler, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The Riddler is one of my favorite Batman villains. Um, Not a lot of people like the Riddler so much, but I love the Riddler. I think he's so cool. He's very smart, very clever, very witty. Somehow always gets away. You know, that guy's super hard to catch, but I just thought that was so cool. So seeing Jim Carrey as the Riddler, I thought was really cool. The colors and everything as a kid, I just thought were just so eye catching. And then it was kind of a big departure from the first two films that were directed by Tim Burton. Funny enough, who has his own unique style that kind of catches your eye. But yeah, there's Batman Forever. I really enjoyed that one. Okay, next up on the list of my favorite childhood movies, we have 2002's Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi. I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. To this day, he's still my favorite iteration of Spider-Man because and I have no hate towards Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. I think they do very good jobs as well in their own right. But to me, the Spider-Man that Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire cooked up was in my opinion, the best iteration of the character. I thought that Tobey Maguire played the best of both characters. When you play a superhero, you're playing two characters. You're playing the guy in the suit, and you're playing the guy outside of the suit. So if you can't do both of them well, I'm not gonna like it very much. Like, I have my issues with Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland in both aspects. There are aspects of them in the suit that I don't like, and then there are also things that I do, as well as I think there are things that they do very well as the Peter Parker version, and then there are things that I don't like. So with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi Spider-Man, I just love both sides. I love his Spider-Man and what he brings to the character while in the suit, and all of the action scenes are fantastic, as well as the humanity and the the kind of like nerdiness and unsure of himself and insecure version of Peter Parker that he does outside of the suit. So that's why Spider-Man was always my favorite. I remember the first time seeing this in theaters with my little brother, and I was just blown away because this was probably like the first comic book movie that I thought really felt like a comic book movie, at least to me. The same way I feel like people probably had the same feelings when they had when they first saw Superman, the old Dick Donner Superman. Kids probably saw that and it just blew them away. So that's what happened with me and Spider Man. It just blew me away. Next, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 1990 version. This movie I thought was really cool because it was dark. If you watch the second film, Secret of the Ooze, and then the third one just goes off the rails. The first one is the only one that I felt that was realistic and dark and gritty, and that's probably where my affinity for dark and gritty, like comic book adaptations came from. I do love a lot of lighthearted comedic superhero stuff or comic book stuff, but for some reason I just love the dark and gritty stuff, and this is what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of did for that genre. I feel like when I look back at it, I'm like, man, this was pretty dark, and I loved it as a kid. I thought it was so cool. And the Ninja Turtles have always been one of my favorite characters. I used to have all the toys all the time. And this is a movie that I like would beg my parents to put on all the any chance we got. They were like, "Oh, what movie should we watch?" And I was always like, Ninja Turtles every single time. This next one here is a movie that I recently got back into, and it kind of brought back a lot of memories from my childhood, and that is The Indian in the Cupboard. This came out in 1995. I was still a child. I was child. I think I was just starting school, if I remember correctly, when this came out, and I thought it was like the coolest movie ever because it kind of brought together my love of toys in a way. In the Indian in the Cupboard, a boy named Amr gets a little cupboard for his birthday, as well as a little Native American figure. He puts the figure inside of the cupboard, and with one of the keys that his mom gives him, he locks it up, opens it up, and when he does, the little Iroquois man inside by the name of Little Bear comes to life. What I thought that was so cool is that when the toys that he puts inside of the cupboard come to life, they remember being somewhere else. I thought that just blew my mind as a kid. I'm like, wow, like he's really. It brings up like um, morality. There was a lot of things that were happening in that movie. It talks about your childhood and morality and just things that were the difference between right and wrong, like playing God literally with people. When the Native American guy comes to life, he's just like thinks this dude is like the great spirit and stuff and is a god, and the kid's just like, no, I'm just a kid. And then he gets the cowboy, and then he also there's a scene that just blew my mind when I saw it, and to this day I feel it's like the coolest scene ever. It's like the coolest crossover of characters is when he puts um RoboCop, Darth Vader, the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, a GI Joe, and a Ferengi and a Cardassian soldier from Star Trek inside of the cupboard, and they come to life and they're all just fighting each other. I thought that was the coolest thing ever because I love RoboCop, I love Star Wars, I love dinosaurs, and I love Star Trek. So seeing all those little characters interacting and fighting each other was the coolest thing ever. So that's why I love The Indian in the Cupboard. All right, and on to another film about toys because I used to have a huge collection of action figures as a kid. I had like a whole treasure chest kind of thing that my parents got me that I would throw all of my toys in, and it was ridiculous. I had so many action figures. And this is funny because like if this were to happen in real life, it'd be the worst nightmare ever. But Small Soldiers is another movie that I loved so much as a kid. I used to have the action figures, and it kind of goes in tandem with the Indian in the cupboard, where as a kid, it reminded me of all the times I used to play with my action figures and would kind of talk to them in a way. It's weird now, but as a kid, you make friends where you can a lot of the times, especially if you were an awkward kid like myself and very shy. You kind of talk to your toys a lot, and and hopefully they didn't talk back because that would have been very scary. But in Small Soldiers, these state of the art toys become pretty much like militarized little weapons because the guys that built them put military chips in them. So it's basically an AI, and they start to learn, and they take their prime objective of destroying these monster toys way too serious. And this kid gets caught in the middle, and there's a bunch of um, action scenes that were really cool. I also really love the Gorgonites. The Gorgonites are my favorite archer. It's like my favorite. I used to love his character so much. Like I thought he just looked super cool. He was like a monkey thing. I have no idea what he was, but he was awesome. All right, and lastly on the list, another movie that's a film that's not exactly a kid-friendly movie, but it's one that I used to watch so much as a kid that my mom told me as an adult that she hated this movie because I used to watch it over and over and over. And that is The Cable Guy, which came out in 1996 and was directed by Ben Stiller. I didn't even know this was directed by Ben Stiller until I was like an adult already. And I don't remember why, but I was like, at the end, I used to never read credits as a kid, so I never knew what actors were in what unless I was very familiar with them. And I also never knew anything about like directors, producers, anything, writers, anything like that. I kind of would just skip through the credits. But now, as an adult, I take appreciation in it. And I saw that it was directed by Ben Stiller, and I was just like blown away by that. I was like, what? Ben Stiller directed one of my favorite movies ever? That's funny. But yeah, The Cable Guy is a movie that is so classic in my opinion. When it first came out, I think it was a little too dark for some people. They didn't really, I guess they didn't really vibe with it. If you look up the history of The Cable Guy, it didn't do so well. But I feel like once it hit like home video and word of mouth came around, like a lot of people just ended up loving it. But at first, people were just kind of like, this isn't very good. But from the very beginning, I've always loved The Cable Guy. I just thought it was so funny. Like I said, I've always loved Jim Carrey. Um, it's a toss up between The Truman Show and The Cable Guy for like my favorite Jim Carrey movie of all time. But yeah, The Cable Guy, Jim Carrey plays this really lonely dude who just wants a friend, and sort of finds that in Matthew Broderick's character, who just moved out of his girlfriend's house. And he kind of the Jim Carrey's character goes by a few aliases throughout the movie, and they're all based on TV show characters, which I thought was really funny. And kind of just ends up stalking this guy, and I guess he just can't differentiate between. He just spent so much time watching TV, can't differentiate between reality and television, which is also funny because my mom used to tell me the same thing. I used to just watch so much TV and so many movies that she felt like I wasn't like, I guess, being part of the real world in her words. Like she just wanted me to go out and be normal and stuff, and I'm like, I am normal. But yeah, I thought that was very funny that my mom just hates this movie because I used to watch it over and over again. But yeah. All right, guys. So hopefully you were able to get through all that. I kind of tend to ramble, but I wanted to talk about my favorite childhood movies. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite childhood movie or movies are, and let's get a conversation going. And if you haven't, go ahead and watch my past few movies where I'm just doing lists and stuff. I have a lot of these to do. Trying a new format, something a little different, something to get away from the monotony of the other videos I've been doing. And I find these very fun, so hopefully you guys too. Thank you for watching.